You're listening to the National Media Archive. To learn more or volunteer, go to nationalmediaarchive.com. Companies across the country are firing people in waves while claiming they just can't find enough good workers to hire. Some employees are flipping the script entirely, quietly holding down 2 or 3 full-time jobs at once, stacking paychecks in a system that never saw it coming. Others are stuck grinding out unpaid overtime at a single job, doing everything they can just to keep the lights on. Meanwhile, whole slices of the workforce are getting swallowed by the gig economy, a world where shifts are as unpredictable as the weather and benefits are more myth than reality. The 9-to-5 wasn't always this way. The idea of clocking in and out, same hours every day, came out of the fight American unions waged over a century ago. Back then, it was revolutionary. It gave workers a way to trade their time for a predictable living. But the world that system was built for looked nothing like what we see now. Factories, fields, and assembly lines have given way to conference calls, emails, and digital workflows that don't obey any tidy production line. Still, we cling to this old framework, trying to jam every new job into its mold. It's no wonder cracks keep showing. Millions of people now juggle multiple jobs just to pay for rent and groceries. The term for it is overemployment, the hustle of patching together enough paychecks to stay afloat. For many, one job covers the basics, but not much more. So a second or even third gig makes the math work. Behind all this is a simple truth. Our time is our greatest asset. A report once put it bluntly. About 2/3 of the average person's wealth is not in savings accounts or houses, but in the work they can do over a lifetime. That's what we spend every day to buy everything else. In the old days, a standard job was a fair deal. You showed up, did your 8 hours, collected your paycheck, and climbed the ladder if you stuck around long enough. But this one-size-fits-all idea of work, the standard clock in, clock out, has turned into a cage for many. And a money pit for companies, too. Here's where it started. Back when the Ford Motor Company wanted the best factory workers around, it didn't just offer higher pay. It promised a predictable 40-hour work week. Rivals had to match it to hold on to their talent. What worked so well for the car assembly line spread like wildfire across industries. But there was a catch. Factory work is repetitive. Every hour on the line equals more cars on the lot. Office work? Not so much. Some days overflow with tasks. Others, you're stuck pretending to look busy just to fill your chair. Yet the model persists. Even now, companies cling to the idea that 40 hours is a magic number, not because it fits the job, but because it fits the contract. So when business booms, workers log extra hours for free. When business slows, they stick around to meet the clock, doing tasks that barely matter. This mismatch makes time itself feel worthless. And for many, that means unpaid overtime is just part of the deal. Data doesn't lie. At the peak of recent crunch times, white-collar professionals found themselves clocking nearly 100 hours in a week just to meet what the company expected. 1 extra day every week, given away for free. On the other end of the seesaw, millions find themselves busy with busy work. Work that keeps a seat warm but does little else. The 9-to-5, once a safety net, has become a drag on productivity and morale. If that was the only problem, we could shrug it off as just another quirk of office life. But this outdated model doesn't just waste time, it costs money too. And that's driving a tidal shift towards something else entirely. Gig work and freelancing have exploded. Over the last decade, gig jobs and contract roles have grown 5 times faster than traditional permanent positions. Why? Because it's easy to start. With a bike, a phone, and an hour to spare, anyone can sign up to deliver food, ferry passengers, or run errands for whoever pays. The barrier is low. The control feels high, at least at first. Apps like Uber Eats, Postmates, DoorDash, and Grubhub promise freedom. No resumes, no interviews, just a steady flow of orders, pings, and tips, at least until the algorithm goes quiet. For the unskilled or underpaid, it's a better bet than the rigid grind of a fast food job that might pay $7 an hour and ghost you after an interview. Skilled workers are jumping ship too. They've discovered that selling their services as contractors pays more and ties them down less. A nurse can skip the hospital's payroll and work shifts through a staffing agency, choosing when and where to show up. A A developer can take on a $10,000 contract for a website instead of waiting for a promotion that may never come. Healthcare workers, tech wizards, consultants, many are swapping permanent desks for temporary gigs. They're drawn to better pay and more freedom. Hospitals fill gaps with traveling nurses. Tech giants hire contract engineers for just the months they're needed. Businesses like it too. No benefits to provide, no long-term commitments, no headaches when the work dries up. But freedom has its cost. Contractors trade security for flexibility. The safety net, the health insurance, the retirement match, the paid vacation disappears. That means every hour off the clock is an hour unpaid. And when work gets scarce or an accident happens, the gig worker, the freelancer, the independent nurse, they're on their own. Health insurance for the self-employed is its own battle. A delivery driver weaving through traffic at midnight might not afford decent coverage at all. Even highly skilled freelancers can watch expenses swallow up those bigger paychecks. It's a quiet trade-off. Freedom now, costs later. So businesses win twice. They pay only when there's work to be done and sidestep the expense of benefits altogether. That's why small businesses lean on contractors, and so do giants like Google. In fact, contractors outnumber direct employees at some tech titans and have for years. When times are good, these contractors command top dollar for their niche skills. When times get tough, cutting them loose doesn't count as layoffs, a tidy way to trim budgets without setting off alarm bells for shareholders or spooking other staff. This is the new world of work taking shape in boardrooms and home offices alike. And the biggest winners in this reshuffle? Not the middle. Not the average worker caught between not quite freelance and not quite secure. There's a certain group that quietly celebrates the slow death of the 9-to-5. Companies that see the spreadsheets getting cleaner, the overhead shrinking, the bottom line fatter than before. But for the everyday worker, this so-called freedom can feel like a maze where the exits keep moving. Take the people at the bottom of the ladder, the entry-level workers who used to take minimum wage shifts. For them, the gig economy looks shiny because on paper, it offers something they never had before: choice. They can clock in when they want, bolt when they're tired, piece together a living with half a dozen apps pinging at once. But even with that new power, the pay remains barely enough to scrape by. One gig covers a bill. The next gig covers gas. The cycle repeats. On the flip side are the skilled workers, the coders, designers, consultants, healthcare professionals, who discover they can trade a regular paycheck for a contract that pays more. They step off the payroll, start invoicing by the hour, and sell their time to the highest bidder. If they play it right, they can make more in fewer hours than they ever did on salary. But that freedom means building a safety net by hand, paying for insurance, stashing money for lean months, filing their own taxes, and chasing down invoices when clients delay payments. This new model works best for people whose skills are in constant demand, the ones who can hop from project to project without fearing the gap between. And that's the cruel twist. The people who already had bargaining power now have more, while the people stuck in the middle lose the most. Companies know this. They've run the numbers. Hiring contractors instead of full-timers means they skip the pension plans, the sick leave, the HR headaches. They pay more per hour, but less per year. They get specialists exactly when they need them. No need to carry the cost when things slow down. And if the economy dips, it's easier to drop a contractor than to push through mass layoffs that spook investors. Big companies are masters of this game. Some of the biggest names in tech and media have more contractors and temps than direct employees. An invisible workforce that keeps the gears turning without adding weight to the books. For them, this isn't about flexibility for the worker. It's about flexibility for the bottom line. When you look at the numbers, it's no wonder the gig economy keeps growing. In the last 10 years, gig and freelance jobs have ballooned 5 times faster than old-school salaried roles. Apps promise freedom and a quick buck, but they also drive down wages in the long run. For every person making a side hustle work, there's another burning out under the churn. Meanwhile, permanent roles lose their shine. Mass layoffs remind workers that stable is often just an illusion. One quarter, the paycheck arrives like clockwork. The next quarter, your badge doesn't scan at the door. States with at-will employment laws make it easy for companies to axe jobs overnight. So people hedge their bets. They freelance on the side, take gig shifts, sell a skill here and there just in case. But the math can be punishing. To really make contract work worth it, you have to charge more, sometimes much more. A permanent employee making $60,000 a year would need to pull in closer to $80,000 as an independent just to cover what an employer used to pay for: healthcare premiums, paid days off, retirement contributions. And not every client wants to pay that premium for average work. Regulations meant to protect workers only complicate things. If someone works long enough for one company doing the same tasks as employees, they might not legally count as a contractor anymore. If that line gets crossed, the company could owe back benefits, unemployment, maybe even face audits. To dodge that risk, companies funnel contract hires through middlemen, staffing agencies that handle the paperwork, the benefits, the loopholes. But here's the catch. For the worker, that middleman can eat away the perks of both worlds. You get the rules of a full-time job: clock-ins, reporting, oversight, but none of the security or extras that come with a real permanent spot. You're neither truly free nor truly protected. Some industries are leaning hard into this. Take elder care. Many nursing homes now rely on contract staff for a big chunk of their labor force. It's a way to cut costs in a field that already runs on razor-thin margins. But it also leaves vulnerable residents in the hands of workers who come and go, paid by the hour, no roots, no guarantee they'll stick around. The result? Corners get cut, and people pay the price. If there's a pattern here, it's that the 9-to-5 is unraveling, but what's replacing it isn't a smooth upgrade, it's a gamble. The winners are clear: companies trimming fat, specialists selling rare skills for big checks, gig platforms pocketing service fees every time someone drops off a meal or picks up a package. The losers are easy to find too. The middle, the ones who can't jump to the top or slide into the shadows of gig life. The question that's left hanging is simple: what happens when more people start slipping through these cracks? So, here we are, staring at a world where the old 9-to-5 is losing its grip, but not vanishing without leaving a mess behind. The promise used to be clear: trade your time for steady pay, grow your skills, maybe even retire with a gold watch and a pension. Now, more people are realizing that promise was thin ice all along, and once it cracks, you're on your own to figure out how to stay dry. Big corporations have read the playbook front to back. Some have even rewritten the rules altogether. They know they can cast off whole teams without calling it a layoff if those people are labeled contractors. No severance, no headlines, no panic from shareholders or spooked customers. Just a quiet trimming of costs that happens behind closed doors, hidden under layers of staffing firms and gig platforms. And for workers, this new shape of work means you're not only doing the job, you're running your own tiny business every day. You decide what work to accept. You negotiate the price. You chase late invoices, track expenses, pay taxes quarterly. You hunt for your own health insurance, keep your own safety net stitched together, plan for time off that no one pays for but you. The numbers tell the same story. If you're an average worker in the middle, stuck in roles that can't be gigged out easily, but aren't rare enough to command sky-high contract rates, the options get grim fast. To break even as a contractor, you'd need to charge tens of thousands more than your old salary just to cover basic overhead. And that's before you even think about saving for the future. But most companies won't pay a premium for what they see as everyday skills. Some regulators have tried to clamp down, pushing companies to reclassify contractors who look too much like employees. But when that happens, companies shift gears again, using staffing firms as buffers, outsourcing the liability to someone else. It's a shell game where the worker is always the one left guessing where the prize went. In some industries, this setup doesn't just make work precarious, it makes people's lives worse. Nursing homes packed with underpaid, overworked contract staff. Delivery drivers risking their health in traffic for a few dollars a drop-off. Office workers filling their days with busy work just to clock in enough hours to seem useful. And yet, the same system creates a strange kind of freedom for a lucky few. The software engineer who picks and chooses projects across the globe. The consultant who stacks retainers instead of waiting for annual raises. The nurse who sets their own schedule through an agency, deciding when to rest and when to work. For them, the end of the 9-to-5 is a door that swings wide open. The trouble is, not everyone gets the keys. Most workers stand at that door and find it locked by expenses they can't carry alone, by skills that don't auction for a premium, by clients who don't want to pay more when they know there's always someone cheaper, hungrier, or more desperate waiting in line. The old model, for all its flaws, at least offered a shape, a contract, a promise. The new shape is a shifting outline, blurry at the edges. The only thing certain is that certainty itself is in short supply. The 9-to-5 may not be dead yet, but every layoff headline, every contract signed in place of a job offer, every delivery dropped at a doorstep by someone juggling 3 apps at once, pushes it closer to extinction. What comes next is up to the same people it was built for, us. The question now isn't just how to survive this shift, but how to shape what replaces it. Because if time really is the biggest asset most people will ever own, maybe it's worth more than the scraps left over when the clock stops ticking.